In our second segment, we have the privilege of introducing you to Renee Brown, the CEO of DePaul Community Resources. This organization has been a transformative force in Central and Southwest Virginia for over 46 years. DePaul isn't just a nonprofit, it's a beacon of hope and belonging, dedicated to enhancing the lives of individuals and families, particularly those with developmental disabilities. With a dedicated team of over 150 staff, 400 care providers, foster and adoptive parents, alongside countless volunteers and partners, DePaul is committed to making a tangible difference in the community. Renee, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to hear more about this organization and the incredible work that you're doing. So thank you again for taking the time. I was curious, let's just tell listeners about DePaul. What does your organization do?
Sure. So DePaul was founded in 1977 as an orphanage, and then began providing foster care services. And one of our foster care youth had developmental disabilities. And that youth was aging out of foster care. So you age out of foster care between 18 and 21, depending on your circumstances, and didn't have any viable support. So we decided to start a developmental disabilities division because that one individual needed our help.
One life made an entire difference.
Yes. So now,
Amazing.
Years later, we now have two divisions. So we have our Child and Family Services division, where we provide foster care, kinship care, adoption, independent living, and community-based or clinical services. And then we have our Developmental Disabilities division, where we provide sponsored residential services, day support services, and our newest service, agency-directed services.
Wow, that is so much that you do because of all the facets underneath each thing that you just listed.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, we support families. We believe that families should be self-defined, and every family should have the ability to support a person, a child, an individual with a disability, to help them strive and thrive. And our vision is opening doors to hope and belonging for those that we serve.
Oh, I've got chills, I swear. That's what a wonderful, before we get into your passion for this, because I want to talk about that and who you are and what made you so, kind of obsessed with making sure that you're helping families in the region. And so I'm thinking about what are the ways that DePaul is focused on creating change that you've mentioned? How do you do that?
So one of the big things that we are focused on is really creating a change on how we think about families. Families should be self-defined. So whether they are biologically related, however they are created, however they're comprised, they should be supported. They should have the ability to thrive and support the individual. So when we think about families and we think about our communities, we really want to think about being more accepting of whoever they are, and the individual in that home being able to be their true self and to be able to self-determine their path in life and to be supported. So the big change we want is let's just support families. It's really that simple. However they're comprised, they all have strengths, they all have challenges, right? We come from families, we all have had those things, right? So let's just support the ones that are in our community and it'll help us all.
And I think it's so interesting, this conversation of what defines a family, right? And it's not just a nuclear family that I learned about in sixth grade health class, right? Anymore, 100 years ago. This is something completely different where all backgrounds of life and all sorts of personalities come together to form a family.
Absolutely. Every culture, contributes to the richness of our community.
Right. That's amazing. And so for those who want to get involved, because you've mentioned foster, what is it like to get involved? How do you do that?
There are many ways to get involved, and it just really depends on the person's ability and interest. So you could do something as simple as our Facebook page and our Instagram. You can follow us. You can share, right? That's a very easy way to share our stories, to comment on our stories, and get involved in our social media presence. If you have passion for this work, right, check out our website and look at our employment opportunities and come be a part of the work that we do.
It sounds like there are a lot of different opportunities, to participate with all the things that you just listed that DePaul does.
And we have, finance department, and we have marketing, and we have development. So even if the hands-on part isn't what you do, you can help support those that do work
wonderful.
With the families.
I love that you mentioned the employment too. It's not just volunteer efforts, but you're looking for community to come in and really be a piece of your company.
Absolutely. And there are the services that we provide, there's restricted funding a lot of the time. So what is also helpful is when we have donors or grants that allow us to be innovative and creative and think outside of the box and outside of the regulations and outside of those things. So If you're able and you want to, you could become a donor, and you can go on our website and it'll show you how you can donate. Or if you know an organization that we could be linked to that might have grant opportunities for us, then we would love for you to link us to those as well.
That's a great idea. I love collaboration. We're very big on collaboration across the region. And so I love that you're offering sort of that unique opportunity as well to bring to the table.
And then we also have wish lists. So we have young adults who are getting their apartment for the first time in our independent living program, and we have to furnish those apartments.
It's really hard to do that when you're young. And
exactly. So we want to
start.
make sure they walk into an apartment that is well furnished and has everything they need. So if people want to buy something to help furnish an apartment, or they know a company that would want to donate some furniture, we're always looking for people that'll help our young adults have a great start.
That's a wonderful cause. Yeah. And, we mentioned, so I was talking about how over 150 staff, 400 care providers, foster and adoptive parents, volunteers and partners. This is not a small thing. Like you're talking about 1,000 people right there off the top of your head that are participating in some way to make this a viable organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the young adults and the children and the individuals with a disability we serve, they deserve our efforts.
Absolutely.
They deserve our support, and they definitely deserve our resources.
Yeah, and getting kind of off track, but I'm curious about success stories that maybe you're willing to share, able to share with our listeners today.
Oh, we have so many. We have had a young adult who was in our independent living program who was living in his car. Before coming into our program. And he came into our program. He has, we got him an apartment. We have on-site staff at our independent living apartments, and we provide training, and we provide education, and we provide transportation, and just all of those little things
really
that help someone launch.
Yeah.
And he had this great idea where he wanted to start his own company. And so we got him some supplies that he needed and helped him learn how to, become a little entrepreneur.
That's hard enough as it is. Oh, my gosh.
And so it's really been fascinating to watch and inspiring to watch him, blossom. And he just needed a little bit of support.
Right. The opportunity that you provided him by just being there for him. I mean, What an amazing thing. Now there's a new business, a new economic value in the community.
Right.
And somebody who's inspired and passionate and ready to do what he loves to do.
Absolutely.
What a wonderful story. And in thinking about challenges, of course, that you might face, talking about needs in the community, what are some of those things that you're really focused on or think that you need to sort of move forward towards this year?
So there's two things. One is there is a lack of foster parents, and this is a nationwide issue. We don't have enough foster parents to serve the children that need support. Roanoke City actually has the highest number of children in foster care in the entire state of Virginia.
Really?
Yeah, Roanoke City. So that surprises some people.
I'm very surprised by that information.
Yeah, so Roanoke is like the little city for southwest part of the state. So we have the most resources when it comes to people that may be housing insecure or need public transportation. So I think it draws people who might be on the edge of doing well and not doing well, and they come to Roanoke. And so that's one of the reasons why we have a high number of children in foster care in Roanoke. But it is a nationwide and certainly across Virginia issue. So we need more foster parents. The children that we are serving, they have experienced trauma. By mere, the experience of coming into foster care is traumatic, right? They have lost their community, they have lost their family. So we need people that are willing to support these young people during hard times. We also, though, need support for kinship care. So the best thing to do when a parent is unable to have their child for a while, the best place for that child to be is still in their community. And so if there's a grandmother, if there's a neighbor that could support that child and the child not come into foster care, that's the best option.
Sure.
But you and I both know that if 3 children showed up on our doorstep tomorrow morning, would we be prepared to support them financially, figure out birth certificates, all of those things? And sometimes we just expect family members to just figure it out. And that's not fair. We should be providing those family members who step up in those moments with the support they need, with case management that they need, and with financial support. They might have to buy beds. They might have to buy clothing, right? There's 3 more mouths to feed. Have you been to the grocery store lately?
Yeah,
right. That is expensive. So we are really advocating for change across the Commonwealth of Virginia through our legislators to support kinship efforts and to recognize kinship families to be just as valuable and needing the support as a licensed foster family would get.
That's very interesting. And listeners know, so my husband is a middle school teacher, and so he sees all sorts of, backgrounds on the students in his school, and in thinking about how many of them maybe need to stay with kinship with their grandmothers or their family members, and they're unable to, and they come to a different school. It's like you said, that's a really hard thing to do, to start over when you're 8 years old, and you need that support system around you.
Yeah, and the data shows that a child who's able to stay in their community with a kinship family does better long term than if we place them with our absolute best, well-trained foster parent.
It's an interesting fact, but it makes total sense.
Right. And we need our foster parents. They provide a valuable resource and a safety net, and so they're important. I'm by no means saying they're not.
Absolutely.
But if we could support children and they maintain, what if they have some traditions? Right. Of going to grandmother's every Christmas, or going to, doing this special thing, pizza on Friday nights with their family. When you remove them, they lose all of that. Right. And they lose their classmates, and they may lose their church family. They lose their neighborhood. They lose their sports teams. Right. So if we can maintain some of that consistency while their parents are getting the support they need, by placing them with a family member, you can see how that would be less traumatic.
Yeah, definitely. Thinking about, all the things you go through as a kid anyway. It's already so much to learn and see and do. And so to have that experience and to have a support system like that, it's absolutely critical for sure. And so in thinking about DePaul, you've already listed so many things that stand out to me about why DePaul is doing amazing things. But what separates you from other organizations? You're all doing the hard work. You're all putting your heart and everything into this.
Yes.
What is it about DePaul that really drew you in and said, I have to be part of this?
So I was actually a foster parent for DePaul years ago.
You have firsthand experience.
Yes, so
wonderful.
I knew them well even before I became a full-time employee there. However, I will tell you, we have the most amazing staff. They are dedicated and passionate. I will tell you that all the stories are not, sunshine and rainbows. There are very tough days.
Yeah.
And our staff hold that alongside with the families and the children and the individuals that they serve. They carry that weight with them. They are passionate. They are dedicated, and they're the best. We have a fantastic leadership team. We have a culture of innovation and flexibility. So there's moments where something doesn't quite fit exactly into a box. We don't say, well, sorry, we can't do that. We say, how could we do that? Can we do that? Let's get a group of people together and figure out, how do we make this work? I love that about DePaul.
You really have to think on your feet there.
Yes.
I find it interesting because obviously your staff and many of the people that you work with, they get to know the families and the kids that they're working with. That's imperative, obviously. I think about how hard some of those days might be, and you go home and you just think about all the things that you experienced in that day. It takes a really wonderful heart to be part of this organization.
It does. And it requires us to value self-care.
Yes.
So we have very specific initiatives that we provide to staff to make sure that they know we want them to take care of themselves. We give them opportunities during the day. Like, take 30 minutes and go for a walk on work time. Take 30 minutes and watch your favorite sitcom. Take 30 minutes and have coffee with somebody. That is all very important. Just as important as all the work they're doing, that they take breaks that are meaningful.
Right, because when you are dealing with a difficult situation, or you're having to think outside the box for something, I imagine that can get, you need to prevent burnout because you want that person to stay with you for forever and always, right? Yeah, that's just so important. I love that you're creating a culture for your own company that lets them know that it's okay to step back for a minute and collect yourself, essentially, before you get back in and do the hard work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And so thank you again for the overview of DePaul. There's so many little facets we can touch because this is so, but I want to know about more you. Sure. So you're the CEO.
Yes.
And I love that your background from firsthand experience as a foster parent, like you know both sides of the situation when it comes to being a foster parent versus being in charge of this organization. And so, are you from Roanoke? Are you from here originally?
I am not. I am a military brat.
Okay,
so
all right.
I'm from a little bit of everywhere and just a little, and nowhere at the same time.
How did you land here in Roanoke?
Yeah, so I lived in Maryland a couple times as a child. I ended up in Texas my senior year in high school and went to the University of Texas at Austin. And always wanted to come back to this part of the country. I just love that we have 4 seasons, but none of them usually to the extreme.
No, you don't have winter in Texas that much? Or?
Right? We have hot and hotter are the 2 seasons in Texas. And so I was like, I need to get back up to Maryland. And so I applied to graduate schools. And back then, Virginia Tech was not known as Virginia Tech, right? It was still, Virginia Polytech Institute State University.
That's so hard for me to believe, because it's been a staple for decades.
I didn't know who they were, but I applied, and I was like, how far can Virginia Tech be from Maryland? Well, it's a little bit farther than I thought. Door. Right. So, but I applied there and was accepted. So I ended up at Virginia Tech, and then decided to settle here in Roanoke because it's beautiful.
Yeah, as a Hokie does. I mean,
right.
Well, that's fantastic. And so, in thinking about your journey, I mean, what was it about this position CEO?
Yes.
You saw this position and thought, I got to do this. What was it that drew you to it? I mean, besides the staff, obviously.
So I was already at DePaul in a vice president position.
Okay.
So I'd been in that position about 6 years. And so I'd gotten to know our leadership team, our executive team, our board of directors, the mission, the values, all of those things. And I'd been able to be a part of big picture decisions and just seeing where we were going. And so when the opportunity came, I thought about it really hard. And I was like, what an honor to be able to lead what you love. How can you not want to do that?
I got goosebumps, listeners, just in case you're not watching the video. That's me rubbing the goosebumps, because, I mean, I can see you light up with how passionate you feel about this position.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a big heart.
Thank you.
And so in thinking about what makes you happy about the work that you do, so in looking at your background, you're a licensed professional counselor, certified substance abuse counselor. Those are not easy conversations to have. That's not easy work to just learn. What is it about this work that drew you to it, that made you say, this is what I have to do?
So my mom was a social worker, so I think part's in my blood. My dad's engineer. So I think those two things combined, helping people and solving problems, I think is just who I am. My younger brother is adopted. So from a very young age, I understood that families were created in different ways. And so as I went to school, I got my master's, I became, I thought I was going to be a therapist full time. A supervisory position opened up at the community service board where I was working. I said, why not? Take the chance. And I fell in love with leadership. I fell in love with the idea of having a bigger scope of influence, of program development, of being able to think creatively of like, what's on the horizon? How do we prepare for what's next? How do we influence what's next? And I felt the energy in developing leaders and watching them shine. And when you hire and you have fantastic leadership teams and you just watch them work their magic, it's amazing.
I love that. Was it difficult for you to do the day-to-day, the groundwork, and then suddenly you're in this leadership position, and now you're, like you said, you're thinking, 5-10 years down the line as far as what this means for you and the organization that you're with? I mean, that's a big jump.
It is a big jump, but I will tell you the work on the ground is harder.
Really?
I give kudos to the people who day in and day out work hand in hand with the people that are struggling.
Right. And, I think your personal experience, your background, like you said, with your brother, it's easy to work for someone that will do the work alongside you.
Yes. And I did case management.
Yeah.
And
so they know that you have firsthand experience.
What they're doing. I understand the regulations. I understand the paperwork. I understand the unfun parts of the job.
There's a lot of paperwork. Yeah.
There is a lot of paperwork when you're dealing with regulations.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And thinking about, maybe your brother's, maybe he's visited you in Roanoke, or your family. Where do you guys go play, do in the region when you aren't working, all the time to help other people, all these other families?
Right. So one of the great things about Roanoke, as we all know, is the outdoors.
Yeah.
Right. So you will often find my husband and I on some water in a kayak.
Fantastic.
Carvin's Cove is one of our favorite places to go. The other part that I really love, though, is all of the art that we have in Roanoke. So we also visit the Harvester and the Jefferson Center and the Berglund Center and Elmwood Park and go to a concert and listen to music. And we have a lot of great places to eat, too.
Well, I will talk about food with you all day long. Our arts and culture scene, our restaurant scene, man, it is. Right? Why would I go anywhere else? Yeah. Shoot. And you've been all over, so you really know that Roanoke's the place to be.
It is the place to be. And, there's an airport. So when you want to go somewhere else, just get on a plane and go visit somewhere.
You got everything you need here.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like listeners to know, either about yourself or DePaul, anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to? And we'll make sure, again, listeners, we'll make sure to share the website and other, links that you might need to make sure to check it out after our video segment. But of course, if there's anything else you'd like to add.
The only other thing I'd like to add is my absolute favorite place to be would be at home with my husband on the grill, my adult children hanging out with us, and the laughter of my 3 incredibly adorable grandchildren. My favorite place to be.
Well, I don't have grandchildren, but that home is also my favorite place to be. And, I think that rings true to who you are as a person because of what you do, because you're creating those experiences for other families too.
Yeah, it's all about family.
Yeah, that's really important. Renee, thank you so much for being on our show today. Gosh, what a wealth of information. What an important organization. Thank you again so much to Renee Brown, CEO of DePaul Community Resources, for being on our show and sharing more about the organization. You can learn more on their website, including donations, volunteering, adopting and fostering, and so much more over at www.depaulcr, that's DEPAULCR.org.